in light of what's happening around the world, what other countries like France and so on are experiencing, it is very clear that there needs to be a lot more of slow release of stress and tension and frustrations, and not allow it to be pent up, right? I mean, it's very clear. You can't open the sluice gates or floodgates like that, but you need to allow for some slow release. In what areas specifically, I'd like to ask each one of you, ending with the Minister, in what areas do you think we can afford to let up a lot more than what we're doing today?
Yeah,
Nazry.
certainly repression, like you mentioned, is it's very damaging to a society, right? As it is to a person, right? And I think what we need to do is to have probably a more open sense of discourse, and I mean this in terms of intellectual discussions, but also in terms of writing in the newspapers about race and religion in a critical manner, even though those are taboo topics. I think we need more of those. I think universities need to also kind of consider, putting out public intellectuals out there. I think that this is very important. I don't know if I feel that certain academics would be wary about going up and talking in public for fear of, I don't know, whatever. And this is not just my field, I think. It's just speaking to fellow academicians.
So you're not talking about specific rules, you're talking about a general sense. The
general sense, yeah. The general sense is trying to embrace a more inclusive kind of environment, and that means not putting so much focus on the legalities, not so cautious in that sense, but to go behind and try to be more open. I mean, I think this is what Singapore needs, and I think the way forward really is to try to get a greater sense of the arts and humanities. Again, I'm putting this out there because I think this is where we can, maybe we can have an institution like the A-Star, but for the humanities, something like that.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. Kian Woon.
I pick up on your word, cosmopolitan, and there is the kind of cosmopolitanism of, Starbucks and McDonald's and so on.
Yeah.
That's we are inundated by that.
Yes.
But there's also a deeper kind of cosmopolitanism that's related to the very best traditions of humanism. Rest, ease, in any religious tradition, you find that commitment to humanity, whether or not it's inflected by religious ideas. And in Singapore, we can develop, I wouldn't say a Singaporean humanism, but we can contribute to a humanistic tradition. I'll just give you one example about taboos. A world without taboos would be such a radically modern world that nothing is sacred, nothing is off limits. That's not going to happen. And I'm not sure whether we want to live in that kind of world.
Absolutely.
But let me give you an example which I have used before in earlier forums. In terms of popular taboos, every cultural group may have some taboos about the body, especially in relation to cleanliness and in relation to hygiene.
Yeah.
And we're not speaking just of physical hygiene, including ideas about being spiritually polluted and so on. Consider the case of blood donation, and consider the case that people from many different cultural backgrounds donate blood to be used by many others from other backgrounds or many backgrounds. Muslims can give blood. The only caveat is that it should not be on a commercial basis, for example. And isn't that something very humanistic, that blood is to be given but not to be sold and bought? Right? And you see, so such ideas which the Singapore laboratory, the Singapore environment can really participate in, develop, articulate. I think we have a special role to play in the world. We've got our work cut out for ourselves in terms of not just the so-called management of differences, but beyond that, what's more than that? What's deeper than that?
Thank you. Minister, before you say, if you could just comment on going back to the main topic, do you think there is a possibility that we could start opening up space for a lot more open discussions on race, religion,
and history?
And history.
Well, you see, I have a problem with each time you ask that, because I have explained the rationale for the laws.
Sure.
They are no different from many other countries. So I'm not quite sure what does opening up mean, but it's not as if it's not open. I think a large section of our population will probably not want us to go down the route of, say, the European countries in, say, allowing people to blaspheme another religion. I don't think we want to go down that
No,
route.
certainly not.
I think where we want to go is having a lot more informed discussions, mature discussions amongst people on issues of race and religion. And that can help build, I think, much stronger, concrete bonds if we can take a gentle step towards that kind of discussion, which may appear critical of, or not everyone might be comfortable with it, but if we can try and have that discourse, that will be useful. But I think we need to be careful, because you can't run ahead of what your society wants. These are not laws and conventions and mores that the government or people in power can do anything about. It's got to be what the society is comfortable with.
Well, that's a very good point to end with. Well, it leaves me now to say once again a big thank you to the three of you, my panelists, Minister, Kian, Woon and Nazry, for joining us. I think some of the points that were raised may appear conceptual, broad stroke, but we are not here to discuss and come up with an action plan. That's not the purpose. In fact, the whole purpose of IQ is to allow for open discussions that could be inconclusive. But we should not try and force conclusions when we're not ready. So it doesn't matter that we may not have arrived at a consensus and an action plan on what needs to be done, but airing of ideas, exchanging those ideas, disagreeing, that sets the tone for a better society. And that's what IQ stands for. And I hope that we'll have more discussions of this nature.